Hello and welcome to episode 148. Two Chaps, many cultures here on a beautiful Wednesday. You may have received some feedback lately, some direct feedback, some confronting feedback there from a colleague who just doesn't want to beat around the bush. The point is, how do you take that feedback, that very blunt feedback, and how do you respond to it in an effective way that makes it just a good interaction rather than a negative interaction? We're going to talk about that today, and we also have some free tips for you to download. So stick around, we'll jump right into it. Yes, and welcome to the show on the business of culture and the culture of business, where we give you the tools and the tips to be successful in the big global world of business that we do. Not just the business part of it, there's some fun stuff as well. How are you, mate?
Is there fun? All right. Welcome.
It's fun. It's always fun.
It's fun. It could even be fun if said blunt negative feedback hits you really hard. It might still be fun if you know where to find the fun. So Brett, before we went live, gave me a portion of, well, it wasn't blunt feedback. He said, well, you got a little hoodie action going on today. That was a more indirect feedback, right? So the direct version of it would be, and this is what my default style of communication is, what the hell are you wearing? Where's your shirt? What's with a hat? Dude, get with the program.
Yeah. What is this, Facebook?
It actually is for some of you watching.
People are watching on Facebook, right?
Some of you. So having said that, where are you watching? On Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube? Where in the world are you as this is streaming on your screen, on your big screen, on your small screen? We don't care. As long as you're here, thanks for being here. Two Chaps, Many Cultures, a program about the business of culture and how culture affects business. And sometimes it affects it in a way that you don't expect it. It's going to hit you hard, especially when it is that kind of negative feedback that is like a punch to the face or the gut. And you wonder, what's up with that? And
absolutely.
You might even wonder, don't they like me? What else could they think, Brett?
Well, they could think that you're not doing your job properly. They could it could give the impression that people think that you're not effective and that what you're doing is impacting the team or the organization in a negative way. So, but oftentimes that's actually, it may be true. It may be that specific situation that you're getting the feedback on. But oftentimes other people do equate that. They do have a broader sense of that and think that it applies to basically everything they're doing. So one particular culture, for example, who might respond negatively or respond questionably, right? They question that direct feedback would be someone from India. We've got a little bit of a bit of multimedia we're going to throw in here, and just have a listen to this.
When I came to the US, I was shocked to face direct feedback. In India, people are very polite. They avoid saying things directly. They would rather tell you a story or beat around the bush than be rude to you. They might say, maybe you should do that, and it's a way for them to give you a suggestion more politely. Or I will try my best could just be a way to politely say, I don't think this is going to happen, or to politely say a no.
So in that case, this is somebody who comes to a place where maybe from their perspective, direct feedback, they're just telling you exactly or giving you suggestions about how you might change your style can be almost considered rude, because in the context of the culture they come from, it would be given in just a softer way. It'd be a suggestion. And sometimes if you're a direct communicator, just to be given a suggestion might be just taken as given a suggestion. Well, if it's just a suggestion, then I don't have to do it. So it makes for some nuances and some confusion.
That was terrifically terrible for me, the suggestion. So I come from a culture that is known to be on the very direct end of the communication spectrum. German-speaking cultures, the Dutch-speaking cultures, Russians are said to be, or Eastern Europeans, Russians, Ukrainians, Belarusians tend to be quite direct. Israelis are known to be very low context and direct in the way they communicate. So in my native culture, a suggestion is that I suggest something which gives me the option in my cultural bubble. It gives me the option to take the suggestion and go with it, or say thank you and politely decline the suggestions that nope, doesn't work for me. I'm going to do it the other way. So in an indirect culture, the suggestion is more than that. It is actually an instruction. However, for me as a direct communicator, the suggestion didn't land. And coming to the United States, I quickly recognized, or well, not quite as quickly as I should have, recognized that, oh, the suggestion you gave me, dear boss, was in fact something you definitely wanted me to do. Well, guess I didn't notice that right away. So that got me in some hot water in the beginning. Now, on the flip side, the other side of the coin is if you expect a feedback, a maybe negative feedback, to be delivered in a more packaged, suggestive way, then you will be very disappointed to find out that your German or Dutch boss or counterpart or colleague will tell you, no, dear Brett, this was terrible, and we're going to redo this because here are the facts why it was horrible, and now here is what we're going to do next. And that may not sound very friendly to you, or would it, Brett?
No, absolutely. I just want to say that Globalicious, Miss Globalicious, Patricia Coleman,
Guten Tag, Patricia. Guten Tag.
Very contextual here, Guten Tag, and then throwing in the old g'day, mate, for me. I appreciate that. So
yeah, very nice.
That's all style switching from.
Lovely.
No, it's so yes, it's in our culture, I was saying that most people would assume that Australians are direct. But of course, sometimes the directness is lost when we deliver it in the contextual way that we deliver it. We sometimes will confuse people with the assumed context in Australia is that we will give feedback with a bit of sarcasm. That sarcasm denotes humour, joking. I'm not really serious. But in fact, we actually are. And so the sarcasm is understood, that context of that sarcasm is understood between Australians. But when delivered to more literal thinking people that just listen to the words, it can be confronting for people. So we do that kind of almost polite, but with very direct words. So that's another nuance that we often don't take into account when we're dealing with cultures that actually have that have indirect feedback. So,
right.
So it's it's just something to keep in mind. Also, then when you're getting direct feedback, is it personal? That's the question. Is it a personal direct attack on your character? This can get down to gets into the case of thinking like the cultures that consider face as something that's very important. Yeah.
I think as a general rule, and I'm sure there are exceptions to this, but as a general rule, in my experience, low context communicators or communicators who give very direct, straightforward, sometimes even blunt and abrupt feedback are often also very task-oriented or tend to be task-oriented cultures. So that's one of the cultural comparison dimensions that you may have already come across is task versus relationship. What in the work or in a human interaction context, what is more important for me, or what do I pay attention to first and foremost? Is it the task at hand that I need to complete, the work that needs to be done, or is it the level of relationship that I have with the people that I'm completing this work with? So in task-oriented cultures, I am focused on data, facts, process, results. In a relationship type of work environment, I first and foremost focus on mutual trust, respect with each other, um, continued rapport, friendliness, politeness, levels of formality, honorifics, all of that. So if I give feedback in a very direct, sometimes maybe even confrontational way, I'm potentially going to hurt that relationship. Now, keep in mind that direct communicators within their direct culture, they all learned by practice from childhood days on that this negative feedback has nothing to do with me as a person. It's relating to the task. I've had this multiple times in the German workplace. I'm German, as many of you know by now. In the German workplace, I received lots of negative feedback. A, because I'm a slow learner. B, because I'm dense sometimes. But I received some negative feedback. That did not mean that the person giving that feedback to me didn't like me or was attacking me personally. Scenarios would play out like this: Christian, this is crap and you're doing this wrong, and how many times have we gone over this, and here's how we do it right, and this is what you did wrong, so let's focus on doing it right this time. And 5 o'clock comes around and people leave work, and the very person who criticized the performance of my task said, "Hey, you joining us for a pint of the pub?"
Yeah.
And to me, this was normal because I knew that the feedback had nothing to do with the person that I am. It had everything to do with how I didn't complete the task the way it was expected.
Absolutely. And Patricia's just thanks for this great interaction here. We've got Patricia saying, love Australian directness. Okay. So maybe some of the sarcasm is good for also just to soften it up a bit, because if somebody is indirect and polite, like we know that Patricia is, and also suggesting here also like German directness versus the so-called American directness. So this is an interesting point.
Yes.
It's always a matter of relativity. And some cultures would say US Americans are very direct because of that perspective. But from a German perspective, perhaps, you would say that Americans are not so direct, especially in particular regions like,
yes,
say, the northern Midwest, where...
Or here in the South where I live, not very direct at all.
Bless your heart and that hoodie. But
hey, this, by the way, ELE means everybody love everybody. So have at it, Brett.
No, absolutely. I love you, mate. You know that. And diplomatically direct. Okay, this is a good point. This is a perfect observation. And Patricia knows this better than anybody. That diplomatically direct feedback that you get, which can often come in the shape of a crap sandwich. Like
yes.
the nice tasty bread with the meat in the middle, which gives that, the context or the directness that you want, but then of course tempered with the other diplomacy that follows it up to say, but overall it's pretty great, and things are very good. So that's a good observation.
And what you said earlier, Brett, is I think key in observing this or analyzing what's going on. So yes, we can talk about directness versus indirectness, but there's a broad spectrum between those two polar opposites. And it always matters or depends on where on this bandwidth you're positioned, right? Where on this divide are you located? So from the Indian or Mexican perspective, Australians, North Americans are quite direct. From the German perspective, Aussies and Americans are, lukewarm direct. They could be a little bit more. I mean, they're not as direct as I am. And then I was thrown in a room with people from the Netherlands, with Dutchies, and knowing that people in the Netherlands are similarly direct as the Germans are, I was still taken aback by this one senior executive in a mixed culture boardroom who slapped it on. And there were Germans, Americans, Indians, French people and I think one Italian person in the room, and they felt like punched in the gut. And I sat there smirking like, yeah, I know what he's doing. And it is quite direct, I gotta say, but it's all right. Maybe a little more direct than I would have said it, but I mean, he's got a point. The man is honest.
Yeah.
I looked around the room and the rest of the room was a little biting their tongue and finding the right response, right? And I think the desire for what is referred to as honesty is something that drives this direct feedback culture. People who prefer to be blunt in giving you a response or in giving you constructive criticism, for that matter, they have a desire to give you their opinion or their assessment without taking it back, without buffering, without bubble wrapping it for you, because they feel like if I'm softening the blow or if I'm softening my message for you, you may not understand what I am trying to convey to you. Low context communicators do not communicate between the lines. What you see or what you hear is what you get. So it's very literal, very verbatim. So if I would take back from the words I deliver, then I would shortcut or diminish my message to you, and I would feel dishonest to you. So because I respect you so much, because I like you and I respect you as a coworker or as a friend, it would be disingenuous of me to not give it to you straight.
Right.
So,
because it brings ambiguity, right? It brings, then you're questioning it. As somebody who is low on the risk continuum, somebody who wants certainty may take that direct feedback and go, well, at least I know where I stand. And then if someone comes back and then softens it later, it's like, well, hang on, what happened there? What's, did you really mean what you say? And just to speak to that continuum again, that idea of continuum, Nikki says here that long live not stereotyping, right?
Yes.
Let's not apply that if you see one person do it, that it is the same and applies the same for the whole culture.
Thanks for that reminder, Nikki. And as we are painting with a very broad brush here, we do want to make sure that you understand that it's just because the flags of the colors of the flag or the passport say one thing, that means behaviors will be stereotypically the same throughout. Nonsense. We don't say that, and we've been pushing that point hard over the last 148 episodes to pay attention to the nuance, where we're simply picking certain nation cultures as prototypical examples for certain behaviors that you may encounter. But thanks, Nikki, for setting us straight here.
So one of the things about getting direct feedback from somebody is that their intention may be to actually serve you in a generous way. And that is to just cut the chafe and get to the point and do you a favor by just clearing the air, getting things open and getting past it. So not holding a grudge past that direct feedback, giving you, really offering you care through the efficiency of being able to help you do your job better, help you complete the task in a more timely manner, so on and so forth. So it's actually, if you look at it from that perspective, the intention is actually rather a generous one. But in the heat of the moment, to think about it as a negative interaction kind of clouds that thinking. So it's oftentimes, we always say, knowing yourself, as you said, Christian, knowing yourself and knowing the perspective of your preferred style, and understanding that if you're confronted with the opposite of that style, thinking about how you will respond to it, how your brain is responding to it in real time in either a negative or positive sense.
Yep. Yvonne has something here that really adds to the conversation here. Thanks for that comment, Yvonne. Americans often say phrases like, you might want to try XYZ, instead of saying, hey, do this or do that. So that is a sign of a less direct way of instructing it. You may want to try sounds like a suggestion to me,
right?
Because my communication styles, well, I might, that gives me an option to not. All right, I may not. I'll make up my mind.
Yeah.
However, in the US communicative context, it is clear that you might want to is not very suggestive. It's more instructive, right? How do you know that? How do you prepare for that? That's where our work, I think, will continue, Brett, and we work with our clients who come to us for training and coaching to help them recognize those clues or cultural cues. Vali says, do you ever go offline? No, Vali, we don't.
Speaking of that, if you're not doing anything after this episode, guess where we'll be?
Right. Yes. So we should mention that, right? Because we won't be offline. There will be a Clubhouse conversation today at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, which is 7 p.m. 1900 in Central Europe. So those of you watching in Central Europe, we'll get you one way or the other. So join us on Clubhouse. And if you don't have a Clubhouse account yet, it is time to get one, people. It's the hot thing. So you might want to, or you may not. It's up to you. Send Brett or myself a DM, and we may have an invite for you. I won't guarantee it because I haven't checked how many I got left, but we may have one.
I've got three. I'm being
look at you, superstar. Superstar. So
Yeah.
we'll talk about this topic and any other topic that you want to discuss. It's an open forum. So join us on Clubhouse later in if you're watching this live, that is, in about half an hour. And if you're watching this as a recording, find us on Clubhouse anyway, because we do this more often. So this is not a one-off. All right.
Every week. It'll be every week.
Every week.
And we're hoping to have our own little club, so you can join the club. This is, and it's not exclusionary. You don't have to pay a fee. There's no cover charge.
Right.
we're totally free. All our advice, and $1.80 buys you a half a cup of coffee, maybe at Starbucks. But that's about it.
That's not coffee. This is my direct feedback. That is not coffee.
I know.
All right. Nikki has another one here. Nikki says, Brits use, don't worry, as a rhetorical filler, but a bit confrontational when someone replies, I don't. Okay. All right. Exactly, Nikki. I've been through that. So we put together a little worksheet because obviously this topic goes far beyond the worksheet. This topic could fill days of training activity and weeks and months of coaching interactions. But we put together a little worksheet for you that's free to download. So where do we have the link here? I think it is right here. So you go here and it will give you a little how-to document. Actually, I'm going to copy that link in the chat box as well, so you can actually click it. So right here, it is coming your way, I hope. Well,
there you go.
You should see it in the chat box. Feel free to click on that. It'll ask you for your name and email because we want to know who you are, where in the world you're joining us from. And in exchange, you get something to take away from this episode from us to you. Free.
It's completely free.
No, for free.
Now, now you have mentioned, of course, that your very own culture is can be a very direct feedback. So if people are doing business with Germany, how do you suggest that they learn?
Well,
funny you should mention that, he says.
Well, there's multiple ways to learn that, right? There's the books with the do's and don'ts, and I'm sure I'm not going to argue that they have their value to a certain degree, and I would suggest that you ideally get yourself an account on many of these online tools that help you recognize your own cultural default preferences and how you can compare that to others. GlobeSmart Profile comes to mind as one of those tools that we highly recommend, and both Brett and I work with frequently. Matter of fact, one of the people behind GlobeSmart Profile will be joining us tomorrow on this program. So you may want to set your calendar for that. And then obviously those tools are part of the puzzle piece, part of the puzzle picture, but there's many more pieces. And one of the ways we engage with our clients is to offer them short module, short form trainings. And we put together a training that will happen, in fact, next week. It's going to be a 3-hour training program on doing business with Germany. It's 3-hour live online. So it's not recorded, it's not canned, it's interactive. And it will be on 2 dates. You see here, February 9 and 11. So that means it's going to be 90 minutes each. So nobody's asking you to sit in front of the computer for 3 hours straight. It's going to be 2 sessions of 90 minutes. And that's on doing business with Germany. It's delivered in English. So for those of you who don't speak German yet, but you're doing business with the German-speaking world, this is what you might want to be interested in. There's a link for you as well if you so choose to join us. Let me put that link in the chat box as well to make it easier for you to find. Bear with me as Brett continues this, and I find the link.
Well, I can absolutely guarantee that this is 3 hours of great content that you'll be if you're doing business with Germany, or you've got colleagues or friends or other business people that you know that are doing business with Germany, this is a great short form way to do a quick deep dive into some of the effective ways that you can do that. We'll be doing more of these, bringing on guests and that kind of thing, where we'll be we've done it in the past. We should probably get back at it a little bit, and offer some deep dive trainings for the specific countries. And if you have a country that you'd like to have us put together some training on and bring some guests and resources in, we're happy to do it. And then you can share it, and it'll be you can share it and disseminate it to your friends and family if you like too. You know, who knows? You could have family.
Yeah, this may not be for you because you're already proficient, like Yvonne here, right? So Yvonne says she lived and worked in Germany and learned by listening to people. This may not be for Yvonne, but Yvonne, you might know people who are still behind you on that path, on that journey to more cultural competence in dealing with others, in this case with people in the German-speaking world. So while you may not think this is for you, you might and you might think of something, oh gosh, let me talk to Susie and Stephen about this, because they still gotta up their game in that. So this is what this is for, and you will certainly find some people giving you very blunt and straightforward feedback in the German-speaking context. Rest assured.
Absolutely. Well, good deal. That's it.
That's it.
Episode in the can. Tomorrow, as Christian mentioned, we have a special guest who is going to talk about the Globe Smart profile, the development of it, some of the history behind it, how it's used, and the effectiveness of it, which is we like to go to the people. Like to go to the horse's mouth when it comes to these tools. Even though we use them every day and we understand we really value their efficacy. We do get questions from people to say, well, did somebody just make this up? And you're just, and while that might look like we're making it up, no, there's actually a great deal of validity behind it. And who better to speak to that than the person who developed it? So we're going to, we encourage you to come back tomorrow and see if that is a tool that you might like to use if you're a trainer or a facilitator in this field, or if you're in business and you want to increase the knowledge of your team and give them some really deep resources into working with people from other cultures. We highly recommend it. So that's it.
In fact, we do. Now, last thing we ask of you, well, actually, the second before last thing we ask of you, no matter where you're watching, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, if you like what you see and hear, express it with all these icons that are available to you on that very platform. Give us a clapping hands, a thumbs up, a heart, whatever it is. We want to see your support. Hit those like buttons. Share it with your network. This is an open forum. This is to be seen by as many as possible. So if you are here because you like what we talk about, then maybe there's more of you that might like it as well. Share it. Yes, we love you being active here and commenting and liking and being viewers and watchers. Let the world know about it. and we want to grow the pie. We want to grow the audience and bring in new people. And just this morning, I was in a Clubhouse room. There were probably 20 potential guests for this program here, and that's what we're looking for. So come over here on Clubhouse in about 30 minutes. We'll continue the conversation.
Absolutely. Hi, Mitch, a past guest from last week, and thank you very much. Shared some great insights into social media, just what we're doing here, sharing the voice and offering the voice, giving voice to other people as well. And Vali, in your answer to your question, tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, I believe.
That is correct, sir.
Having Ted join us from Parry Global, so that will be it. Yeah, that'll be it tomorrow. Absolutely.
All right. Two Chaps, Many Cultures. This is the Wednesday episode. See you in 28 minutes on Clubhouse, and see you again tomorrow. Ciao for now.
Bye.